Hello everyone. So here I am. I'm Roshni, and we will be learning about Earth and its interior in today's class, right? So, okay, from the childhood, from the beginning of our, learning process, we have a basic understanding of the shape of the Earth, right? We call it that it is a spherical shape. However, in geographical language, we call it as a geoid shape. Earth is of a geoid shape, but yeah, like up till now you have a good understanding of the shape of the earth, that is of spherical in nature, right? So today, in this particular topic, we will be talking about interiors of the earth. Right now, like what is inside that sphere that we have been talking about up till now when we are discussing earth and various characteristics and features of the earth. So what is inside of the earth is something that we will be studying today, right? Here in this particular image you can see that, okay, we are going to cut through down the earth, and we will understand what are these things and what vocabularies we have given to these things. Now, in order to understand the interior of the earth, first we have to understand that how come we got all the information and all the data that is there here, that gives us the information about the interior of the earth, right? So what are all the datas and what are all the and how come we got those data? That means what are actually the sources of the datas, right? So in order to understand the origins of the datas or the sources of that particular data, like we have divided the data sources into two different aspects. First is the direct source and another one is the indirect source. Now, what is direct source? Direct source is something which is direct observation, right? So here it is written direct observation, seismic waves and earthquake. Now, what is seismic waves actually? So direct observation is something that we can observe without doing anything, right? That is direct observation. I can directly observe that, okay, the background of this board is black, right? That's a direct observation. Now, in order to understand the direct observation or direct sources of the interior of the earth, we have to understand that earthquake is something that is okay. What is earthquake? Earthquake is nothing but trembling of the earth, right? Or shaking of the earth, right? So now that is something that is directly observed, right? Now when I talk about earthquake, then we also have to discuss about the instrument that we use to measure the earthquake, and that is nothing but seismograph, right? So now when I talk about earthquake and the trembling of the earth surface, now whenever any particle or anything which is in vibration or anything which is moving or anything that has movement is result of the movement of the particle, right? And or the movement of the particle results in the formation of a wave. So earthquake has actually three types of waves, I would rather classify it into. And those waves that are generated by shaking of the earth, by trembling of the earth, are actually the direct source of interior of the earth, right? So first wave that is generated by the trembling of the earth is something which is called as primary waves. Now these are the first wave that you see on the seismograph, right? And that is why they are called as primary waves. Okay. Now primary waves, or it is popularly called as P waves, are they are fastest seismic waves. Why they are called as seismic waves? Seismic waves are something, any waves that is generated or developed or has their source by trembling of the earth is something which we call as seismic wave, and they are measured in seismograph. Now primary waves or P waves are the fastest seismic waves, and they travel through the earth's interior, providing the insights into its structure. Now, okay, so primary waves are something that travels to the interior of the earth, right? And since they are traveling through the interior of the earth, like from wherever they are going, whatever the density or whatever the structure, texture of the interior of the earth, all of those things P waves are actually experiencing and moving from that. right? So that is what P waves is all about. Another thing is S waves. S waves, secondary waves, they are again seen, after primary waves. Secondary waves are seen in the seismograph, and that is why they are called as secondary waves. It is all about vocabulary. Now secondary waves or S wave, they are actually slower than primary waves, because primary waves appears first in the seismograph and then secondary waves. So like in a very, what you call it, common sense manner, secondary wave will be slower than the primary waves. Now the actual difference between primary and secondary wave is that primary wave can travel in solid, liquid and gaseous, all three mediums, right? It has the nature of a sound wave. Now, sound wave is something that can travel in solid, liquid, and gases. Another characteristics of a sound wave is that the speed of the sound wave is more in solid than in liquid, right? Or, it goes on further for the gases. So, the highest speed of the sound wave is in solid medium, and then in liquid, and then in gaseous, right? So in interior of the earth, we don't have any component of gas. So what do we have is solid and liquid. So primary waves are the waves that travel swiftly in solid, then in liquid, right? However, when I talk about the secondary waves, then secondary waves are the waves that only travel in the solid medium, right? So this difference between the primary waves and the secondary waves is actually the very pivotal in order to understand the interior of the earth. Why is that? Because this difference will lead to us in order to understand if the interior of the earth is solid, if the whole earth is solid, if it is liquid, or up till what region it is solid, up till what region it is liquid, or maybe in a semi molten state, right? So all of those information are given on the basis of the fact that primary waves can travel in all three medium and secondary waves can only travel in the solid state, right? Now, yes, I know that primary waves can travel in solid and liquid and gases as well, right? But I also mentioned that the speed of primary wave is more in solid than in liquid, right? So since the changes of medium occur while the primary wave is moving from one place to another, there will be the deflection in primary waves, and that deflection will be the source where you and I can understand where exactly the solid medium ends and the liquid medium starts, or vice versa, right? And that is why having the understanding about the seismic waves or earthquake waves are really important in order to understand the interior of the earth, right? Now these are something which are indirect observation. Indirect observations are something that are not directly observed, they are just anti of each other. So if I talk about indirect observation, then gravity measurements, magnetic field of the earth and heat flow, all these three components are the indirect observation. We will talk about them in further classes, but right now let's talk about the interior of the earth. Now through those sources of direct and indirect observations, like through seismic waves and through various indirect observations like gravity measurement and uh, what else, what not, but all of those sources has given us a good idea about the interior of the earth or the composition of the earth. And here this slides talk about the interior of the earth, right? Now if I just start talking about the composition of the earth, then in the very core of the earth interior is something which we call as core, right? Now earth's interior is divided into three layers, I would rather say. Why layers? Because since earth is a spherical or geoid shape, and that is why it will have some spherical layers, right? So the innermost thing or the innermost sphere of the earth is what we call as core. Core is the most innermost layer, right? And it is yeah, it is mostly solid in inner core, and as you go outside of the core or the outer core line, then it's a liquid in nature. So this thing is a core, the most innermost sphere of the earth's interior is core. As you go up, or as you go out of the core, you have something which is called as mantle. Mantle is the region or the sphere that comes just after the core, and that is the most thickest layer, and that is why we call it most thickest sphere of the interior of the earth, and it is in a semi molten state. Again, as the primary waves can deflect as the medium is changed, and that is the reason why we have the understanding of mantle and core and the uh, uppermost sphere, that is crust. So crust is the outermost layer of the earth's surface, and this outermost layer is something which has lithosphere in it, which has hydrosphere in it. So everything related to human activities are happening on the crust, right? And that is the outermost layer, that is actually, if you compare between crust, mantle and core, then crust has the lowest density, right? And all the human activities, all the development that we see, we observe directly, are observed on the crust, right? Inside the crust, there is something which is called as mantle, as you can see, and then you have core. Now, mantle and core are again divided into two, specific sphere, that is inner core and outer core. So, inner core is the inside of the core, that is in solid state. Then you have outer core. Outer core is in liquid state. And then you have lower mantle and upper mantle. Mantle, or the middle sphere of crust and core, is again divided into two parts, that is lower mantle and upper mantle. And then finally you have what is called as crust. That is where the lithosphere is present, and all the topography of the surface and everything are studied about the crust. Now, why they are in liquid, solid, or what you call it, gaseous state, and what is the reason behind them being in a specific region, why, what is the reason of them being in a different state and different densities, all of those things we'll be talking in the in further classes. But right now, let's get a recap of this thing. So if I talk about interior of the earth, then we have discussed today the sources by which we get the information of the interior of the earth, that is direct sources and indirect sources. We discussed about various direct sources, and then we discussed about various indirect sources, right? And then in a very brief manner, we discussed about the composition of the interior of the earth. So that was all about today's class. Thank you.